Well, if you have watched this channel for any amount of time, you know that we are big fans of historic artifacts. Anytime you have an artifact, it's really telling a story. It's helping to kind of fill in some of the gaps in history. And while individual artifacts are super interesting, one thing that really fascinates me even more are artifact groupings, like big bulks of items that come from one individual. Well, right now, I'm in Gettysburg, and we're right here at the Gettysburg Museum of History, and Eric has a grouping in his collection from a Marine in the 2nd Marine Division who fought at Saipan and at Tinian that is absolutely incredible. So the man that we're looking at here was named K.M. Hout. He served in the 2nd Marine Division. So as I mentioned just a bit ago, that means he would have fought on Saipan and Tinian and Tarawa. And look at all of the stuff that this guy brought back from his time overseas. So Eric's going to kind of walk us through some of the items in this grouping.
So this is a really great group of bringbacks and mementos from his service, including photo albums and things taken from Japanese soldiers and a little bit of just about everything. I'm going to focus right now on the flags. He brought back several flags. A lot of times you'll see one or two of these in Marine groupings, but he has several here. Here's a smaller one here that has a couple of temple stamps. So the way these flags worked in a nutshell was that when they would go off to war, friends and family would sign these flags for good luck for the soldier. And sometimes they would take them to Buddhist temples and have these stamps put on them. So when you see that, that's usually a temple stamp. Sometimes you'll also see stamps that are from U.S. censors, because sometimes I guess they had to pass this stuff in case there was any kind of intelligence in anything that was picked up off of an enemy soldier. So that there's this particular stamp is a U.S. It basically allows the soldier to keep it, and it's been examined by his superior officer or intelligence. These are pretty good flags. Most of them have a lot of the writing and characteristics on them, but one I want to really focus on is this one. This is a really great flag. It not only has the writing on it, but it also has some artwork on it. And get it spread out a little bit more here. It's got this tiger here on it, which is very interesting. And it also has some temple stamps on it as well. There's one here. I saw another one. Yeah, there's one here up at the top. And just a fantastic flag. But I wanted to show something in the scrapbook also. Besides the flags, he also took pictures of his war trophies. Now, we don't have everything in this grouping, but we have a few of these items. But I wanted to point to this picture right here because this is that flag, because you can see the tiger there. And I assume some of these are the other flags as well. Pretty interesting, and it's neat to have it documented in his scrapbook like that.
Here are a few other items here in this grouping. So right here are the dog tags of our Marine. It says Hout KW. And then there were a few other things that were a little bit puzzling whenever we were looking at this grouping. Okay, so this is a Christmas program, and as you can see at the top, it says United States Ship Maryland. Okay, here is a matchbook from the Maryland. Okay, and then another matchbook that says United States Marine Corps. The photo album, if we look at it, down here it says USS Maryland. Okay, now this was one of the ships that was on Battleship Row during the Pearl Harbor attack, and was just inland from the Oklahoma. So if we open up, well, we can see pictures, of some of his buddies. Here, this is on Samoa, and let me move this. If we kind of continue looking on, here are some people that he may have met or were important to him. Here's a lady who was on the island of New Zealand. Here is a weapons platoon in New Zealand in 1943. And there are several other pictures of different places that he went and people that he knew. Now, the Maryland thing might continue to be a mystery, but we have something that we're quite fortunate to have, and that is a written record of his service in the Pacific Theater. So apparently there was a little girl by the name of Molly who had written him a letter and wanted to know about his service. And he starts off talking about how impressed he is and how flattered he is that she would want to know about what he did in the war. So he talks about how, as a Marine, he was posted on guard duty on the USS Maryland. So that answers that question. And then it goes on and he talks about fighting in Tarawa, and he talks about going to Saipan and Tinian. But it's something that adds just a little bit more to the story and to the overall picture of this Marine.
When it comes to war trophies, a lot of the war trophies that you see are things that the soldiers or the Marines, thought at that time were valuable. So they were trying to take things of value, basically. You'll see stuff like the Japanese binoculars, and they're pictured in this photo as well. You'll see weapons. You see a lot of swords here and guns. They were looking for items of value. Currency. This guy took a lot of currency from Japanese soldiers. There's a whole lot of it, and of course that became worthless pretty much after they surrendered, because they adopted a different type of currency. And there's occupational currency that was used for a while. One of the other things that you see in the Pacific Theater grouping sometimes is very controversial, and I want to address it because we see it sometimes. And one of the things that they did was they sometimes knocked gold teeth out of dead Japanese mouth, and they were trying to get the gold. And in this grouping, there were two teeth. This one, the gold has been disappeared over the years. I don't know what happened to it, but it would have a gold cap. This one has it. The Japanese tended to use these gold caps, and some of the men looted those teeth, and you see that a lot. And very controversial, but it happened, so we're not going to cover it up or anything. I want to introduce this. This is not from the same grouping. This is actually from a soldier that was on Iwo Jima, but it just shows it a little bit better, how they had these gold caps and sometimes silver, or I assume that's silver, and they would knock the teeth out of these guys and take them as war trophies. A lot of times they were melted down over the years, made into other jewelry or whatever, but you see it sometimes, and it's one of those things that doesn't get a lot of attention, but I thought I should mention it since these were in this grouping.
All right, well, there you go. Pretty incredible grouping from a Marine who saw who knows what during the Pacific campaigns. Now, again, kind of going back to the gold teeth thing, we might look at that today and think, dang, that is some pretty dark stuff to be knocking gold teeth out of the mouths of enemy soldiers. It might be a little bit controversial now. It was controversial then as well. There was an article in Life magazine that showed a picture of a woman holding a Japanese skull that someone had sent back to her. Caused a huge uproar at the time. So as this war was progressing, people were becoming more desensitized, and some of the things that were happening in the Pacific became increasingly more shocking. This is also addressed in the book With the Old Breed by Eugene Sledge. He talks about this practice of knocking out teeth. Excellent book, by the way. I'm not going to get into it here, but if you want to know more about it and kind of get some more insight into people's mindset at the time, read that book. But anyway, incredible grouping, lots of history that can be learned from these physical objects that came out of World War II.